Floor is yours.
Thanks, Victor. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Do I have the right screen on Zoom?
Yes, it's correct.
Sounds good. Thanks for the invite. It's a shame that we're not meeting in person this year, and it's always a good meeting to go to for the networking and then getting to get together with colleagues that work in the area. And I think over the last 4 or 5 meetings, I spoke about cattle disposition and temperament and how that impacts their reproductive efficiency. Today, we're going to change the topic a little bit and focus more on the post-AI nutrition side of things, okay? And more specifically on supplementing essential fatty acids. And there's a reason to why Arm & Hammer is sponsoring this talk. It's because most of the essential fatty acid research that I do, post-AI, during early gestation or throughout gestation, it's using some of their technologies. So we appreciate Arm & Hammer for the sponsorship. The second thing that I want to say is this is a combination of studies done in South America, done at Oregon State University and at Texas A&M, using all kinds of cattle breeds that we have out there, and also different environments, from tropical climates to more temperate environments. So that said, I thought that the video that Arm & Hammer was going to show was going to give a little introduction about essential fatty acids, but it's not. So as I go through this presentation, you're going to see the word Arm & Hammer or Church & White. Okay, it's basically the same company. Arm & Hammer is a branch of Church & White, and it's basically that company that we buy soap or sodium bicarb or toothpaste. But anyways, when we talk about essential fatty acids, and like I said, on this presentation, I'm focusing on the post-AI period and how can we provide essential fatty acids during that time and really get the pregnancies to stick. I mean, we spent a lot of money with the bull or with the ester synchronization protocol, buying the hormones, and an expensive semen, being conventional or sex semen. And then after we breed the cows, we do a good job getting them to ovulate, and the pregnancy goes away. And one of the main reasons that the pregnancy is not maintained is probably a nutritional imbalance. And essential fatty acids, it's something that it's actually, quite common on the human side of things for a woman trying to become pregnant. There are supplements that they take during that time that they're trying to conceive and maintain their pregnancy that are based on essential fatty acids. So the same rationale, technology, and hypothesis can be translated to the beef cattle world. So when I talk about essential fatty acids, are those that cannot be synthesized by the body, okay, and must be provided in the diet. The 2 examples that I want to share here, it's linolenic, omega-3, and linoleic acid. So as you see products that are enriched with omega-6 and omega-3 that we usually try to buy to feed our kids or, as supplements, we take them because our body cannot synthesize those essential fatty acids, which have several activities in the body, from energy source to cell membrane function to precursors of a bunch of hormones that are important for immunology and also reproduction. So we got to take them through the diet to be able to maintain a good supply of those omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids. Consequently, we have enough to make sure that our body is functioning properly. There's several sources of essential fatty acids. You can have essential fatty acids coming from, soybeans, cottonseed, flaxseed. But if you go back to Nutrition 101 and you remember that, cattle, they have a rumen, most of those essential fatty acids are going to be completely biohydrogenated in the rumen, and they're going to become saturated fat, okay? Then we have calcium salts of fish oil, which are longer fatty acid chains, which are basically omega-3, okay? And then you have the calcium salts of essential fatty acids, more specifically soybean oil, which are richer in omega-6, okay, omega-6 than omega-3. And the reason why we use calcium salts of those fatty acids is to protect those fatty acids from rumen biohydrogenation. So whatever the animal is consuming is actually being delivered to the body. It doesn't get modified in the rumen as the fatty acids coming from natural ingredients. Okay, so throughout this presentation, I'm going to be talking about a specific supplement, which is calcium salts of essential fatty acids. And the commercial product that we use most of the time is Ascension, which is calcium salts of soybean oil. Okay. So how did I get into this research area? And as I mentioned before, we've done quite a lot of work with different cattle subspecies, going from Bos indicus to Bos taurus cattle. But we first started this actually thinking about the dairy side of things, dairy cows. So one of the main challenges nowadays in terms of maximizing pregnancy outcomes and reproductive efficiency is early embryonic loss. A lot of those cows, and I'm sure there are more talks about this in this meeting, but a lot of the cows that fail to become pregnant are actually becoming pregnant. They're conceiving but losing their pregnancy during those first 2 to 3 weeks after conception. So it's a major challenge in both Bos taurus, Bos indicus cattle, dairy, and also beef systems. So one of the research goals that we have is to find ways, and in this case, nutritional ways to minimize the pregnancy loss. And through that, to attain this goal by promoting that early pregnancy recognition maintenance. So basically, the embryo, okay, which at the time is a conceptus, but the embryo needs to tell the mom that she is pregnant. Without the embryo signaling to the cow that she's pregnant, she'll never know. She's just going to cycle back again, and then the pregnancy is lost. So there is a need for signal coming from the embryo to the cow, and that signal is called interferon tau. It's a protein that the embryo synthesizes that reaches the cow circulation, and then her body understands she's pregnant, so she doesn't lyse the CL, and then cycles again. Consequently, the pregnancy is maintained. Okay. So one of the ways that we focus on in terms of trying to maximize that early pregnancy development and pregnancy maintenance is through feeding essential fatty acids post-AI. So during the time where the embryo is growing, and then need those essential fatty acids as a fuel, okay, for growth, and also to synthesize that protein that I talked about, the interferon tau. A lot of research done in this area, especially on the dairy side. That's why we started on the dairy side, mainly with omega-3 and omega-6 combinations. And then after, doing some research in dairy, we thought, well, maybe this is something also that we need to explore on the beef side. So just to summarize in 2 slides only, some of the dairy research, a lot of cows assigned to the study, hosting cows, and then receiving about half a pound of that calcium salts of soybean oil. So from now on, every time I talk about the essential fatty acids, I'm specifically talking about calcium salts of soybean oil, okay? A rumen-protected source of essential fatty acids, more specifically omega-6, okay? So that source was offered to cows at about half a pound a day. And then what we saw in that study was that we increased milk production by about 5 or 5.5 pounds a day, which is a big deal. But on the dairy side, and if you guys have experience on dairy cattle, the more milk production you get, the lower the reproductive efficiency might be. So they usually don't walk hand to hand. As one goes up, the other one might come down. So on this particular study with a lot of cows, as I mentioned, we saw an increase in average milk production, but then pregnancy loss was decreased by nearly 50%. So looking at the pregnancy rates on day 28, okay, day 60, we see that the cows that did not receive the fat supplement, the CSSO, calcium salts of soybean oil, had about 18.3% loss, and then the ones receiving it, in this table, the abbreviation is PF, but it's what I'm talking about. It was only 12.6%. Consequently, we did see that providing that source of essential fatty acids not only helped with milk production, but also decreased pregnancy loss. So we made a connection. Okay, so something happened in terms of early pregnancy development, that those essential fatty acids are helping out that pregnancy to be maintained. And then we decided to run a bunch of trials in this specific research area, which gives us a very comprehensive story about how this technology works and can be implemented in commercial operations. So going back to the product itself, okay, being more specific about the technology we're using, as I mentioned, it's calcium salts of soybean oil. So from now on, the abbreviation is CSSO, calcium salts of soybean oil. In South America, the name of the product used to be Megalac E. Okay, and if you guys are on the dairy side a little bit, or have done some sort of a fat supplementation, the name might be familiar to you. So this source is about 40% linoleic omega-6 and only 3% linolenic omega-3. So it's mostly omega-6, okay, just a little bit of omega-3. But because it has omega-3, we're just going to call it essential fatty acids, not omega-6 fatty acids for now, okay? And this product in South America is basically the same thing as the Megalac R, which used to be the name found in the US that now is called Essentium. So that's the name of the same supplement, the CSSO that you find in the US. And the brand is basically like this. And as I mentioned, Church & Dwight, Arm & Hammer is the company that produces and commercializes the supplement. So based on the dairy data, you know, with the benefits in terms of reproduction, we thought about using this supplement as a breeding season supplement, okay, during AI protocols to see what kind of performance or benefits we're going to have in terms of pregnancies by supplementing cows with omega-6 and omega-3 fatty acids or essential fatty acids. So we begin with a small dose, about 100 grams, so a quarter pound, cow a day, quarter pound, okay, mixed with the breeding season crude protein supplement, just to see what kind of initial results we would get. And why only quarter pound, Reinaldo? It's because if you add too much, first of all, the cows are not going to eat. And then second, if you provide too much fat as a supplement, you might actually impact negatively their rumen and consequently forage digestibility, which is the main source of nutrients for grazing beef cattle or beef cows. So I'm going to show here just a bunch of data compiled. Okay, this is data with almost 5,000 cows during about 10 different experiments. And then we saw that once you supplement cows with CSSO, post AI only, which means what? It's not a conception benefit. It's not an ovulation benefit. It is a early gestation, early pregnancy benefit. Okay, so post AI only for about 21 days. Why 21 days? I'll explain in a second. We did see that pregnancy rates to AI, fixed time AI more specifically, when you supplement the CSSO, okay, essential fatty acids in this graph here, was 50.3%. And the animals not receiving, okay, no fat at all, was 41%. Then we also had in some of those studies a control group with saturated fat, just saturated fat, to have an isocaloric and isolipidic supplement to compare the essential fatty acids with, okay? So about a 9 percentage point increase, which is basically 30% enhancement in terms of a pregnancy ratio AI. So how did we get to this graph? So it wasn't as easy, you know, to run one study with a bunch of cows. It's actually broken down into almost 10 experiments. And this, like I said, this is done in South America, mostly Boston Indicus cattle. I'm just going to go, you know, fairly quickly over those. But you can see that the first trial, and across all trials, AI is on day 0. Okay, day 0 is AI. So day -11 is the beginning of the sync protocol. Day 28 is preg check. So the cows receiving CSSO, okay, on this first trial, at the beginning of the sync protocol to preg check, 51% versus 39% of the control cows. So a big bump in pregnancy rates. The second trial, we decided to see, all right, how long do I need to supplement? Is it a CL lysine short cycle kind of thing, or it's actually development of the conceptus? So we stopped feeding at day 16 after AI. And as you see, you need to go at least to day 28 to capture that benefit in pregnancy rates. The third trial, it's about focusing on the conceptus, on the embryo, not as much on the oocyte or the ovulation process. And a model used for that is embryo transfer. So we fed the recipient cows only from day 0 to day 28. Day 0 is the day of ovulation, and then day 7 is embryo transfer. And the cows that received the CSSO, again, much better preg rates to embryo transfer than the control ones. So it is not on the oocyte. It is not an ovulation benefit. It is a pregnancy development benefit in terms of that embryo that's going to become a conceptus. Experiment 4 was just to make sure that it's not an energy effect, because we provided that saturated fatty acid source compared to the CSSO. Okay, so isocaloric, isolipidic, because if you think about 100 grams of fat, okay, quarter pound, it might be that energy that the quarter pound of fat is providing to the cow, even though just 100 grams, it's nothing compared to the size of a body of a cow. We had to test that theory as well. So we ran experiment 4. And then on this experiment, we said, you know what, we think this is not a ovulation benefit because of the embryo transfer trial. Okay, this is a post-AI benefit, and there you go, the same response, 48% compared to 35%. Reinaldo, those preg rates are very low. Yes, they are. We're talking about Boscinicus females here. And because this meeting, it's online, and we have people from all over the planet, talking about Boscinicus and Taurus makes a lot of sense. And then experiments 5 and 6 were a little more comprehensive, and then we're trying to find the window, okay, relative to AI, where you need to provide essential fatty acids. Again, day 0 to 14 to address that short cycle issue. Day 0 to 21, which is when the pregnancy maintenance process it's occurring, meaning what? It's that interval between day 15 to day 21 of gestation, when the embryo needs to synthesize that interfrontal, and then the mom receives the signal that she's pregnant. And then day 0 to 28, which encompasses this pregnancy recognition period, we just feed a little longer. So on this trial, we saw that you actually got to feed during that pregnancy recognition period. You don't need to go to day 28. It's actually during that time, providing all the tools for that embryo to signal the mom that she's pregnant, and the tool being the essential fatty acids. Then experiment 6, about the same thing, okay? So with that massive amount of data, we were able to determine that post-AI supplementation with calcium salts or soybean oil, especially during that pregnancy recognition period, it's critical for increasing pregnancy rates. And again, it's independent of the energy contribution of fat, okay? Now, why? Why are we seeing that significant bump in preg rates to AI? And comes a little more biology now. Okay, we're feeding omega-6 as the vast majority, okay, of the fatty acids in CSSO, just a little bit of omega-3. But can we really discard the omega-3? We didn't know at the time, okay, especially because omega-6, they have pro-inflammatory, I'm sorry, 18-2. It's linoleic, which is omega-6. It has pro-inflammatory activities, whereas omega-3, which is the linolenic, has anti-inflammatory activities. And then the inflammation was always negatively associated with pregnancy, okay? But still, when you're feeding a supplement with a lot of omega-6, we're getting a bump or an increase in pregnancy rates. So we decided, okay, let's first of all, let's try to understand which fatty acids doing what, okay? Which of those fatty acids, the omega-3 or the omega-6, actually going down to the uterus, finding the conceptus, feeding the conceptus, and then giving the conceptus the ability to synthesize more or less interfrontal. So we used about 100 cows again, and on this study, and all those cows were synchronized, AI, same bull, same technician, and then beginning at AI, okay, for about 18 days, after AI, this is important, 18 days after AI, they either received a supplement containing CSSO, okay, about a quarter pound, or a control diet, okay, no CSSO at all. So testing the hypothesis of what is reaching which reproductive tissues in terms of fatty acids. We slaughtered those cows on day 19. We collected the uterus. This is a uterine horn that we believe the pregnancy is in here somewhere. We flushed that uterine horn with saline, and we were able to find, guess what? This is a day 19 conceptus, okay? Day 19 conceptus, about 40 centimeter long. So once we have that in hands, let's see the fatty acid profile of this conceptus and then understand which fatty acids are reaching this conceptus in terms of perhaps giving this conceptus a greater ability to tell is pregnant. So we ran a profile of essential fatty acids, overall fatty acids in the blood of the cow. Then I'm just going to go very quickly over this, but the green shows that there is more, so you don't have to worry about the p-values or statistics. Okay, the green is more. So as you can see in the blood, so the first stop of fatty acids after intake and then digestion is the blood. Okay, so from the blood spreads across the body of the cow. And we see that the cow is receiving calcium salt to soybean oil, more linoleic omega-6 in the blood, omega-6 overall, okay, polysaturated, all that good stuff, and then an increased omega-6 to omega-3 ratio, which makes sense because the CSSO is mostly omega-6. Now, we also collected tissues of the endometrium, the uterus. And then we saw that by providing the CSSO, we favor the incorporation of omega-6 fatty acids, okay? When it says N6 here, it's omega-6, okay? And then as you can see, most of the omega-6s are actually up in the uterus of the cows receiving that supplement. When we do the fatty acid profile of the conceptus, the same thing. More linoleic in the conceptus, more of this and other omega-6, more of the arachidonic, okay? A little bit more of the EPA, which is an omega-3, but overall, there's almost like a 7-fold increase in omega-6 fatty acids in the conceptus of the cows supplemented compared to the conceptus of the non-supplemented cows, okay? Telling us what? That mainly omega-6 is reaching, okay, the reproductive tract, including the endometrium and the conceptus, okay? No increase in linoleic and omega-3. So it seems like all the benefits coming from the supplement, it's actually coming from the omega-6 that's driving pregnancy rates up, okay? But now, this first study was done just to check the fatty acid profile. Next step was, all right, is this greater supply of omega-6 really promoting synthesis of interferon tau to explain that increase in pregnancy rates? And that's what we did, especially because omega-6, they are usually associated with luteolysis, okay? Luteolysis, so lysis of corpus lutein, which means what? Pregnancy loss. However, omega-6 are also precursors of other prostaglandins, which are good for pregnancy, such as PGE2, PGI-I2. I know this is a lot of biology, but no, the point here is not all the prostaglandins from the 2 series are bad for pregnancy, okay? One causes CL regression for sure, but there's 2 that are important for pregnancy development, and they need to be there to make sure that the pregnancy is established. So to address this hypothesis, we ran another study, very similar, where we AI the cows, okay, same bull technician, and then for 21 days after AI, we fed either the treatment, okay, the CSSO, or the control. Same design. In the blood, same thing. But now on day 15 of gestation, okay, think about this. Day 15 after AI, it's when that conceptus is beginning to tell the cow that she's pregnant, synthesizing interferon tau, okay? And that's what we found, okay? Once we collected and we flushed those cows, we got those conceptuses out, we were able to see that the conceptuses coming from the cows supplemented with CSSO, they were about double the size than the control embryos. They were producing or synthesizing or giving the recipe for synthesis of interferon tau about 4 times more than the control cows, including synthesis of prostaglandin E, okay? And then we also had a subset of cows that did not get flushed. And then on day 21, we got a blood sample on those cows, then we saw also markers of interferon tau synthesis being upregulated. So overall, again, lots of biology here, but this table is telling us what? That providing the CSSO, especially the omega-6, it's promoting embryo development and giving that embryo a greater ability to synthesize interferon tau. So with that, that increase in omega-6 incorporation on the entire repro tract, including the conceptus that we saw on the previous studies, they basically hastened or increased development of the embryo by day 15, when the window for the pregnancy recognition process begins. Greater conceptus length, more synthesis of interferon tau, and also prostaglandin E synthase, okay, in terms of gene expression, which are known to promote pregnancy establishment and success, which in turns, by having embryos that are growing, you know, perhaps a little faster, not as much, just within the biological limit, producing more interferon tau, gives us a good reason to why, biological reason to why we're seeing greater pregnancy rates by 30%, 9 percentage points, okay, 30% that we saw on the first studies with 4,000 to 5,000 cows. So this is the rationale behind CSSO supplementation, okay? Omega-6 reaching the conceptus, giving the conceptus more fuel to grow and synthesize interferon tau, which then translates into increased pregnancy rates to AI. So all this research, this initial research, was done with Boston Indicus cattle, okay? And then we had a question, okay, now we used cows on a tropical environment, you know, just we have in South Texas or South Florida, South America or Mexico. How about, are we gonna see the same results if we go with Bostars cattle and raised within typical US, you know, conditions, temperate environments, not temperament. Especially because Indicus and Taurus, they differ in several reproductive aspects, including pregnancy, early pregnancy development. So we decided to go ahead, replicate those studies in the US, using the US product, US calcium salts of soybean oil available here, okay? And then under normal production systems in North America. So the first study was actually done with Vitor, Virginia Tech. And then we had on this study a very similar design as done in Brazil. Nearly 800 cows, okay, Bostars, crosses, mostly Angus and Hereford. And then those cows were in 22 pastures, and then we synchronized them, we timed the AI on day 0, and then after day 0, the same regimen, okay? From day 0 to day 21 post-AI, we fed Essentium, 1/4 pound, okay, mixed with some corn and soybean meal just as a carrier, and then the control. Now, Energy Booster is a saturated fatty acid source. So this is our fat control. So the diets are isocaloric, isolipidic, just to get the energy, the potential energy bias out of the picture, you know, for real. And then what we saw in this study was that basically in terms of base postpartum was all the same. Body condition score didn't change as expected because supplements were equally in terms of calories and protein. No differences in estrus detection as expected because treatments began after AI, so after the period of estrus expression. But look at the pregnancy rates. Again, a 9 percentage point increase in pregnancy rates to AI, to one AI only, 60% versus 51.7, which is basically that same 30% increase in preg rates as you compare. If you divide 60.2 by 51.7, you're gonna get about 25 to 30% increase. Now, to understand the physiology behind it, the same process was done with less cows, okay, receiving the same treatments, but then we flushed those cows on day 15, just to look at the conceptus of those cows to see if we're also seeing an increase in interferon tau on the Bostars cattle that we have in the US getting the American supplement. In the blood, the same thing, more linoleic in the blood of the cows receiving CSSO, okay, as expected. Now, if we look into expression of interferon tau in the conceptus, the same increase, now double the increase. It differs a little bit because, like I said, the pregnancy development process is different between Taurus and Indicus. But again, we saw that same increase. In this time, it's a double advantage for the conceptus is coming from CSSO. And those markers in the blood basically the same, okay? So again, feeding the CSSO, the calcium salt soybean oil, in this case, the Sentium, to Bos Taurus cows in typical US conditions, we had a bump, an increase in pregnancy rates, which is explained by that greater ability of that, little conceptus synthesizing interferon tau and signaling the mom that she's pregnant so she doesn't cycle back, that pregnancy is maintained. So now how about the costs, Reinaldo? So this is some, really rough math that we did back in the day, back in 17 when the study was done. I'm not going to go into a lot of details here because I actually don't remember how this was done. So, but you guys can look at the slide as much as you want. Thinking about the Sentium at about $2,400 a ton, and then we also had soybean meal and then corn as carriers, okay? Because the cows are not going to eat the Sentium by itself, okay? We need to have a carrier there just to provide a supplement, okay? At about half a pound a cow a day. So if you only feed for 21 days, 300 cows, this is your cost, feed only, okay? Just with the feed. I'm not talking about labor; it's a whole different story. But just by buying feed, we're probably, our expenses are about $2,000 to feed 300 cows. This is the model we use, 300 cows for 21 days. Cattle prices back in 2017 were a little better than it was than they are now. But hopefully we're gonna go back to those levels pretty soon. And then I know it's in kilos, okay? I apologize, I should have converted this into pounds. But anyway, let's look at the dollar sign, okay? We're talking about weaned calf at about 550 pounds at $830, okay? This is the calf value at weaning. If we're talking about 550 pound calves back in 2017. If we have that same increase in pregnancy rates, so going from 51% to 60%, that means 26 more pregnancies, okay? 26 more pregnancies. So if you spend $2,000 by purchasing the supplement, which includes a Sentium, okay? And you feed that to 300 cows, and you get 26 more pregnancies. You increase your winning returns, okay, by $22,000. So you're feeding $2,000, you're getting $22,000 back, only accounting for feed prices, and then of course using 2017 cattle prices, okay? So the ROI, it's over 1,000% based on feed purchase only, okay? Not including labor and feeding logistics because it's too complicated. Then the question is, Reinaldo, do I have to feed my cows every day? So, well, unfortunately, yes. So unfortunately, to deliver this technology to cows, during the breeding season, you gotta supplement them. I spent 9 years in Oregon at Oregon State University. Breeding season was done in public lands, one pair per 40 acres, and it was logistically it was very complicated to supplement cows during the breeding season, and this is something that goes across the U.S. So the point is, how do we deliver this technology to cows, minimizing labor requirements? And the next step on this research area that we are taking now, it's inclusion of those essential fatty acids, the calcium, salt, and soybean oil, into self-fed molasses tub, because then all you gotta do is just put the tub out there during the breeding season, and the cows will feed themselves. So we ran a study here in College Station. We had 2 treatments, okay? Actually 3. One, we know supplement. One, receiving the CSSO just like we did before, mixed with corn and soybean meal as a carrier. Okay, just a small, half a pound to a pound a day. And then we also had that CSSO included into a molasses tub, self-fed molasses tub, okay? So basically the cows here, here you have to feed every day. And here you just put the tub out there. Depending on how many cows you have, it lasts for a week or 2. So in this study, what we did was basically monitor intake of the concentrate. So this is the dry feed, okay, the hand-fed supplement containing the essential fatty acids. And we have the low molasses, the low moisture block, self-fed molasses tubs. Okay, as we know, intake of tubs are way more, has much more variation across days compared to a hand-fed supplement. this is what we saw, okay? Ups and downs, because we weighed, we actually grabbed those tubs and we put on a scale. So we had a weight on those tubs every day. And then we know how much concentrate was fed to the other group of cows. The target was about half a kilo a day, about a pound a day. That's the target for this tub. And then what we saw was that when we collected blood from those cows, okay, just to see the incorporation, because like I said before, the first step for those essential fatty acids in the body of the cow, before they go, into the reproductive tract and find the conceptus, is the blood. So our first step is, okay, do we get the same level of incorporation of fatty acids in the circulation, in the blood of those cows? And we did. So no supplement is our control, with no supplementation at all. Then we have the concentrate, which is the dry feed that we used before. And now this is the low moisture molasses-based block or tub. And you see here that we have the same level after feeding for about 25 days. We got blood samples in the middle at the end of the study. Okay, I'm just providing the average here. We have the same level of incorporation of linoleic, total polyunsaturated, total omega-6, and total fatty acids. So by using a self-fed molasses block, you can provide the same level of omega-6 to cows, and then hopefully have the same reproductive responses as we saw by providing that hand-fed concentrate during the breeding season. So overall, it's we've been doing this kind of research for the last 10 or 15 years. The benefits of essential fatty acids are huge. Okay, essential fatty acids, it's something that we think about almost every day on the human nutrition side. Okay, if you go back to your house, you open the fridge, you might find some of your groceries are enriched, okay, or added with omega-6, with omega-3. You might take capsules of omega-6 and omega-3. So this is something that's actually common on the human nutrition side of things, and should be also something to be considered when feasible in beef cattle nutrition, specifically beef cows, because of their benefits to reproduction. The one thing that I'm also focusing on is the potential effects of those essential fatty acids on the entire pregnancy development. Okay, and we have data that if you keep feeding, okay, the CSSO, not only during early gestation to maximize pregnancy, but if you keep feeding to term, that calf that's born has a greater potential for growth and carcass marbling, okay, compared to calves that come from cows not supplemented with CSSO. So the benefits are there. This is an area of research that we are focusing on in the beef cattle side of things. There's a lot of other researchers doing the same. But just for you guys to think about one more strategy, one more technology that can be used to enhance pregnancy establishment and overall performance of Bostars and Indicus cows. And as I showed in this study, this actually worked in herds that are reared in temperate and also tropical environments in the US or wherever part of the globe you are listening to this presentation. So with that, that's all I had. I hope that I'd stayed in time, and I'll be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Dr. Cooke. We have a couple questions coming in already. A couple questions about the economic analysis. If you could revisit that a little bit and just explain whether you are on that math. If you consider that the control cows that didn't get pregnant, they'll never get pregnant, like not even for AI, or if you're just considering the increase in pregnancy by AI.
Just considering the increase by AI, just a very simple math. Okay, it's just a very simple, just to start thinking about the possibility of this technology. And it shows that even when you do a simple math, it might not be the best math, okay? I know that for sure. But just by thinking about simple math, you see that the return on investment is clear.
Also, there's some questions. If you ever looked at this, specifically to first calf heifers and the effect of AI pregnancy.
So those initial studies that we ran, we had multi-pairs and primi-pairs and nulli-pairs cows, okay? So replacement heifers, first calf heifers, and multi-pairs cows. And across parities, that technology worked in terms of improving pregnancy rates.
There's also a question about, you mentioned towards the end, the effects on the calf, on marbling. You guys look at calf vigor at birth?
Great
Early
question.
measurements of calf health?
Great question. One of the major benefits that we found when feeding calcium salts of soybean oil to cows in gestation, so not only during early gestation, but later in gestation at all, as well, was a major improvement in colostrum quality, which translates into calf vigor. And then as we know fairly well in the dairy side, the importance of high quality colostrum, it's huge for calf. And that impacts not only calf vigor at the beginning, but also productive responses throughout their life.
Common question, the majority of beef production or beef operations in the US don't use AI, right? They use natural service. So how can we incorporate that technology on ranches that use natural service but not AI?
Great question. So we use the AI as a model, right, Victor? We use as a model because we control the time of conception, then we can have everything synchronized in terms of sample collection and then evaluation of our research results. But the physiology of pregnancy establishment and maintenance is the same. Okay, if the semen is coming from a straw, or if it's coming from a bull, so it is the same. So we are, developing new studies now by using those stubs throughout the breeding season. That includes not only AI but also cleanup bulls. And the idea is that the process is the same. So on operations that only use bulls, you can expect an increase in calves being born earlier in the calving season, because that first mount by the bull might result in rates because of the benefits of the technology in terms